guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my Christmas book haul and my Waterstones 50% off hardcovers sale book haul. Basically, I got my Christmas gifts and Waterstones had a big sale, so I've got those two. Gonna show them both to you in the same video. Why? There's a lot of them, and I really don't feel like breaking this down into two book hauls. It would be too many book hauls. I was very fortunate to be given a lot of really wonderful books by my family and by my husband this year for Christmas, and being the bookworms that we are, on the 27th of December, we went straight out to our local Waterstones and we bought some more. So as I said, there are a lot of books here. I'm going to try to run through them fairly quickly because I haven't read most of these. I can't give you a very good description of what they're about, but there is going to be links to every single book in the description down below if you would like to learn a little bit more. So let's get started with the Christmas books. The first book that I have is one that I actually finished yesterday as of the filming of this video, and I loved it. It's the first book I read this year, and it is already a contender for Best Book of the Year. It was that good. This is Heart of the Sun Warrior by Sue Lin Tan. This is the sequel to Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which, spoiler alert, is one of my favorite books of 2022, and I absolutely loved it. The series is a retelling of the Chinese myth of the moon goddess. We follow the moon goddess's daughter, hence the name of the first book. The first one is quite a slow burn, and I'll talk about this in my best of video. Quite a slow burn, really lovely writing, really lovely kind of romance, and I love the characters and everything. And then it gets quite action-packed toward the end. This book carries on the energy of the ending of Daughter of the Moon Goddess. There's so much going on here, but it was really well done. It was very like questy, so there's, they have to do a lot of quests in order to achieve their ultimate goal, and it had what I thought was a perfect ending that made me bawl my eyes out. So I got to describe what this was about to Scottish husband, who was dumbfounded, but he was the one who gave me this, so kind of his fault. Anyway, I love this. So good. Go out and get it. Then I have the omnibus edition of The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe. This is a manga collection about a sort of forest demon who stumbles upon a little human girl in the woods and kind of takes her in because it's obvious she's been abandoned, even if she doesn't realize it. It's really wholesome, really sweet, although there's some danger and whatnot involved, but it's just a really beautiful story. I've read the first two, I think, but they're so expensive to buy and read individually, and I got so excited when I heard there was an omnibus edition, so I asked for this for Christmas, and I'm so happy to have it. You gotta check out the artwork. It's perfect and beautiful, and I really love it. Then I have The Whispering Dark, and this is by Kelly Andrew. This is a fantasy meets dark academia, and while dark academia isn't usually my thing, I think the fantasy elements will really work for me. I remember going to a book event and the author talked about this book, and we all got really excited. In this book, we follow a girl named Delaney who is tired of being perceived as fragile because she's deaf, and she ends up winning a place at a particular university that teaches its students how to slip between parallel worlds. She has an unpleasant encounter with a pretentious upperclassman very early on in the year, and it kind of starts her out to a rocky start, but things get worse when she discovers the body of a student. She and this upperclassman named Colton Price have to basically team up and figure out what's going on, and they come up against terrible fantasy things. This sounds really fun. I'm very intrigued. Again, I don't usually like dark academia, but I think those fantasy vibes give it similar vibes to the Scholomance series, which I really enjoy as a setting. Love a magical school, so we'll see how this goes. Then I have a book that kind of needs no introduction. It's The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This is the fourth and final book in the Mistborn Era 2 series. I've read the first three, and while Mistborn Era 2 doesn't sort of have the same sort of appeal to me as the original series, mostly because of the setting. I don't love the kind of Western setting as much as I love the traditional fantasy setting. I'm still really curious to see how this is going to end. We are a Steris household. We stan Steris. She's amazing. She's my favorite, one of my favorite sort of Brandon Sanderson characters. She's so like, she's just perfect. So I'm really curious to see how things are going to end up for her and how things are going to end up for all the other characters. I hope, it's been so long since I've read the third book, I hope that she didn't get like killed off and I totally forgot, but it's entirely possible. I'm going to read some recaps of the series before I go ahead and dive into this one, but looking forward to it. Then I've got a book that I've actually already read. I listened to the audiobook from NetGalley earlier in the year, but I was desperate to get my hands on the hardcover because one, it's beautiful, and two, it's linked to one of my absolute favorite series of all time. This is River of Silver by S.A. Chakraborty. This is basically short stories that are connected to the City of Brass trilogy during, before, and after that sequence of events is happening. It fills in a lot of gaps. We talk about a lot of characters that we only sort of hear about in passing because either they've passed away or they're not like main characters in the story. Really wonderful. I love this series so much. It's one of my absolute favorites. I'm really happy to have this in my hands. Then I've got a book by one of my favorite authors who I've not read nearly enough by. This is The Red Scholar's Wake by Aliette de Bodard. I absolutely adored The Tea Master and the Detective, which is a novella, I believe, and this is a full-length novel, although it is a little bit of a shorter one. And at the same event, because it was a glance event, that Kelly Andrews talked about The Whispering Dark, Aliette de Bodard talked about this, and she said, very few words, but it drew us all right in. Lesbian space pirates. What more do you need to know? I love the fact that she uses sentient spaceships in her sci-fi because it's one of my absolute favorite tropes that doesn't get used enough. AI, different from sentient spaceships. Just gonna throw that out there now. But I love it. It's one of my favorite tropes. I'm really excited to see that in here. So this is one of my most anticipated reads. And then I've talked about these in my December wrap-up. I received volumes 8, 9, and 10 in the Lumberjanes series. It's one of my favorite series of graphic novels. They're really wholesome. They're all about friendships. They're very LGBTQ friendly. They feature a lot of queer characters, and they're just really, really fun. Would highly recommend. Now we're moving on to the books that I got in the Waterstones hardback sale. You may notice that not all of these are hardbacks. I apparently decided at the end of the year, because I'm going to be reading down my TBR and I'm going to be destashing my fabric and my yarn and working through those stashes. It's going to be a, working with what we've got kind of year in 2023, but I decided that I was going to set myself up for failure in as many ways as possible. There's a lot of new yarn, there's a lot of new fabric, and there's a lot of new books. So you may notice that some of these are not actually hardbacks, but I couldn't resist. So yeah, let's run through them. So if you saw some of my videos from the summer of 2022, you may know that I got really weirdly into these Japanese Golden Age of Crime mystery novels, and Pushkin Vertigo is the imprint that is publishing them. Apparently they had a couple new ones, so I snapped them right up. The first one is The Master Key, and this is by Misako Togawa. I read one of her books last year. I think it was The Tokyo Lady Killer, which I really, really enjoyed, and I just snapped this up because it was one of hers. This book takes place in a boarding house for single women, and the master key goes missing, and all 150 residents are gripped by paranoia. Apparently the boarding house is his sinister past, and it's a tale of deceit, kidnapping, and murder. Sounds awesome. And then I have The Tattoo Murder, and this is by Akimitsu Tagagi. This takes place just after the war in Japan, and in the Edo Tattoo Society, a woman comes in and displays her full-body snake tattoo, which is met to much rapturous applause, and then she is found murdered, and that body art is not on the body anymore, shall we say. Her lover teams up with the detective to figure out what's going on, but similar murders begin to ensue. Apparently, this is a classic Japanese locked room mystery. Love a locked room mystery. One of my favorite things. I'm really looking forward to this. And there's some more crime, a book that I've wanted to get my hands on for a really long time, but I had resisted until now, is Nothing More to Tell by Karen M. McManus. This is YA crime fiction. In this book, we follow a girl named Bryn who has landed an internship at a prestigious crime, true crime, either YouTube show or public access show, and she pitches the story of the murder of her favorite teacher at her high school 4 years before, I believe, and a group of students found the body. She wants to figure out what's gone on. There's kind of an official story of what happened, but she doesn't believe it. I assume there's going to be lots of secrets and lies. Really excited for this one because I have really enjoyed her stuff in the past. Then I have a YA thriller book. I've heard lots of good things about this author, but not actually read her yet. This is The Midnight Game by Cynthia Murphy. This is one of those books where the back tells you almost nothing. That white text is the blurb. Basically, we follow a group of teenagers who meet online and get together in person to try to summon an entity called the Midnight Man, and things go really wrong from there. Apparently this is really fun. I was actually offered this as a review copy, and I foolishly declined. I saw it in the shop, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get that because it sounds really good. The next book is a book that I've wanted to get for a really long time, and I can't deal with the cover, which my friend who works at Waterstones was laughing at me because she's like, I know some of the horrific stuff that you read, and you can't deal with that cover. Yes, I've put a little bit of paper over it, but This is a book of horror short stories, I believe translated from Spanish. This is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez. This is what the cover looks like. I can't deal with this, so we're gonna do that. I don't know a huge amount about the stories contained in this volume, but I know that people love this. It's really, really highly praised. I have her full-length novel. I don't know if you'll be able to actually see it. It's right there on my shelf, but I thought that I would give her short stories a go before I dive into that one because that's really, really long. And I've wanted this for ages. I figured I might as well get it on the TBR before 2023 starts. This is not coming off though. Now we're moving on to the hardbacks, and this is an interesting stack because some of these are books that I might not have necessarily chosen to buy in hardcover because they're ones I would be a little bit unsure of. There is some YA contemporary in here, which is absolutely not my thing, but I decided to kind of take a chance on it when it was paperback price. And there are some things that I've had my eye on for quite a while and decided to just take a punt on. So first up is YA crime. This is actually one of the books that I was hoping to get in this sale. This is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I have read Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I really, really loved. I really enjoyed. I need to finish that series. Classic me. But while this was on sale, I decided I wanted to pick it up because I knew I was going to be getting this book at some point. This book seems like it's basically a road trip from hell. There are 5 kids in a car driving, I believe, at night, and there's an RV that breaks down in the middle of the lane in front of them, and it becomes apparent that this might be a trap and someone might be out to kill one of them. They have 8 hours until daylight, until like people are going to come and find them and help them, and it sounds really good, really, really thrilling. Apparently there's like a sniper in this. It says you can't see me, but I can see you. If you try to run, I will shoot. It sounds like it's gonna be quite tense. We'll work on it when my anxiety is at a low. So now I've got those 2 YA contemporary books. The first one is A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe. I have Last Night at the Telegraph Club on my shelf. It's historical fiction. It's meant to be wonderful. I need to read it. I didn't know if this was going to be contemporary or historical. Apparently it is contemporary YA, not usually my thing, but because I've heard so many good things about her previous books, I decided I wanted to give this one a try. This book is basically about the summer that changes the main character's life. Her name is Aria, and she is basically looking forward to a summer before going off to university. She's going to hang out with her friends. She's just graduated, but at a graduation party, something terrible happens and she gets exiled to California to live with her grandmother, who is an artist. She expects to be pretty bored in California, but she unexpectedly meets her grandmother's gardener and her life changes forever. Sounds really wonderful. I believe it's an LGBTQ story. I'm really looking forward to this. I really, really want to read her books. I know that she's a very well-established author, and yeah, I'm very curious to see what she's all about. And the other contemporary YA book that I have is I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. In this book, we have Shara Wheeler, who is the principal's daughter. She's perfect. She's the prom queen. And 1 month before graduation, she kisses a girl named Chloe Green, and then she completely disappears. Chloe's trying to figure out what's happened, and she finds out she is not the only person that Shara kissed before she disappeared, and she teamed up with this group of other kids to find out what happened. I somehow don't know a huge amount about this book, despite the fact that it was huge when it came out, because all of her books are huge when they come out. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how this goes. Again, I'm not really one for contemporary, but it sounds like it could be one that I really enjoy, so I thought I'd take a chance. Next, we're moving on into crime fiction. I have read one of this author's other books, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. I'm very curious to read this one. This is The Long Knives by Irvine Welsh. He's the author of Trainspotting, one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies, but I've never read any of his other stuff, including the other Trainspotting books, which I had no idea existed for a long time. This is a crime fiction book, and it sounds very interesting. In this book, an MP is found dead, castrated, and left to bleed out in a Leith warehouse. The thing about this guy is that he is not a nice person. He's a vicious racist and homophobe and just a really, really nasty guy. The list of suspects is absolutely massive. So as the inspector is trying to figure out what happened and solve this case, he's also trying to figure out who the real victims are here. This sounds great. This sounds very kind of our time, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. Then we have a book that was recommended by a friend. This is Dirt Town by Hayley Scrivener. This is another crime fiction book. It was one that I was waiting to come out in paperback, saw it in the sale, and picked it up. In this book, a 12-year-old girl named Esther disappears from her small rural Australian town, and I believe we have 3 perspectives. We have her mother, we have the detective who's trying to solve the case, and we have her friends, and all of these stories are going to converge as people are trying to find out what happened to Esther. This sounds really good, very, very intriguing. I can't wait. This next book is the third book in a series that I haven't quite caught up on, but I know I'm gonna love it. I've read the first book, I need to read the second, and now read the third. This is Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the third book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. So, fun story, my brother-in-law actually for Christmas on his list asks every year for each member of the family to give him a book that they loved, that they read that year, and that they think he'll enjoy. Last year I gave him Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and he gave it to my sister because he loved it so much. She ended up loving it. Everyone else in the family wants to read it. Big success. So we are all about this series. I am super hyped up to read this next one because I got him the second and third one for Christmas this year. This basically takes place in a cafe. In this cafe, there are very, very specific rules, but you can time travel to the past or to the future, and we follow, basically, in the first book, it's 4 essentially short stories of people who decide to take on this power, and it's really wonderful, really beautiful. I cried my eyes out, which is not terribly surprising or new, and I just really, really, really love this. So yeah, I need to read the second one, which is Tales from the Cafe, and then I'll get to this one. And then last but not least is a book I was very unsure of. If you are in the UK, if you have been in Waterstones in the past like 6 months, you have seen this book. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. It's one of those where I feel like it's either going to be one that I absolutely adore or I really hate, and there's going to be no middle ground. But this is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. One of the bonuses of finding this in the half-price sale is it's the version with the periodic table on the edges, which, like, I absolutely love. You know I eat this shit up. In this book, we follow a woman named Elizabeth who is a chemist in the 1960s, and she finds herself a single mother and the host of an incredibly popular cooking TV show in which she uses her chemistry knowledge to teach people how to cook, and she deals with a lot of misogyny, 1960s misogyny, so it's particularly vicious, and she's kind of teaching women to change the status quo. This sounds really, really good. My dad really enjoyed this book, and I know a couple of people that I've seen on TikTok who I really like have really enjoyed this as well. I can be very up in the air about books that deal with misogyny as like, you know, as like a main premise of the book, but because this is written by a woman, I feel like we've maybe got a good chance of it being handled really well. Otherwise, it just infuriates me. See my talking about Under the Skin by Michelle Faber in my December wrap-up. That was an absolute mess. But I think I'm going to really enjoy this one. It's come highly recommended. So that is my book haul for my Christmas gifts and for the Waterstones sale that they do at the end of every year. It's a really amazing haul. The stuff that I haven't read yet is going straight onto my nightstand. There are a lot of books here, but I'm really excited to read each and every single one of these. I think it's going to be a really, really good reading year. I would love to know in the comments below if you have read any of these books, maybe if they're in your TBR, or what you received during the holidays, or if you went to that Waterstone sale. And I believe the Barnes & Noble sale is the equivalent in the States. What did you get? Let me know, I'm really nosy. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.